7 months until the World Cup kicks off in North America, and Tony Popovic's long list has gotten very long. So today I'm going to have a crack at trying to predict who will be on the plane come June for that World Cup. I've got 50 names here. Now, these are players that have been selected in the last 3 windows, plus a few extras. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. There's a long time between now and the World Cup. We've got another international window in March. But let's have a go at least trying to whittle it down and have a think about who's probably a fair chance. And I will say quickly, these are my predictions of who I think Popper will take, not necessarily who I would take. If you're new around here, welcome. I'm an Aussie in London working in football and making a little bit of content along the way. So feel free to stick around if that's your thing and let me know if you agree or disagree with my selection. There's a lot of football to be played between now and June, so anything can happen, but I'm very interested to hear what you guys think as well. Okay, let's start with the goalkeepers. And I actually think this is probably one of the more straightforward areas in the squad right now. I would be absolutely shocked if Maty Ryan doesn't start. He's been in fine form in Spain for Levante. Popper came out before the USA game and said he still is number 1 despite Paul Izzo. Obviously just proving he's a very, very safe pair of hands and probably our number 2 at the moment. Joe Gauchi, I think, will be on the plane as well. He's been playing more regularly for Port Vale, but they've been struggling in League One, and I can't really see him jumping either of these two in the next 7 months, but you never know. Tom Glover, I think I'm actually going to put him on outskirts. I just can't see him working his way into the squad at this point. He's unattached. I know he's been training with Sydney FC. Tale came out and said, look, we're not looking to sign him. He just wants a professional environment to be in. So I can't see him making his way into the squad. He'll need to find a club as soon as he possibly can. I think Patrick Beach is probably going to be the next port of call, assuming he keeps up his really good form in the A-League. So that, I think, is probably what our goalkeeper situation is looking like. Okay, let's move on to our defenders, starting with Lewis Miller, who, again, I would be shocked if he doesn't start at right back. He's been in great form for Blackburn in the Championship. He can play on the right side. He can play centre back as well. At this stage, I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't start. But let's talk about these two, Jacob Italiano and Fran Karicic. This feels like it really, I think one of these two will be in the squad, 100%. They give you kind of different options. I think Fran Karicic is probably a little bit more physical than Italiano, but he hasn't been playing a lot of football for club or country. So I'd probably edge Italiano at this point and put Karicic first reserves. It's really, I feel like this could end up being a toss of a coin depending on Karicic's fitness, because that has been a major concern in the last little while. But I would probably edge towards Italiano. He didn't do too much wrong in the October window when he was called up. He's playing regularly in Austria. And he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. So I think he probably at this stage, if we're predicting who Popper's going to take, I think he's probably on the plane. Okay, now let's talk about James Overy, who I would be shocked, I'll be honest, if he makes the final squad, just purely on the basis of not really having played any senior competitive football. I think it's great that he's in the squad. Clearly he's versatile. He can play on the left or the right. We saw that at the Under-20 World Cup. I'm just personally just thinking, let's pump the brakes. He's clearly unbelievably talented, but we've seen players dominate at youth level for Premier League academy sides, and that hasn't always translated into first team performances. The gap there is huge. You see that in the EFL trophy with academy sides playing lower league men's sides. It's a huge jump. A very interesting pick to have him in the squad. I don't see any issues with that, but I would be very surprised if he's on the plane in June. Okay, Miloš Degenek. Does he start? That is the big question. I'm actually going to go out on a limb. I think he'll be in the squad. Popper's said in the past that Degenek's kind of one of those players, doesn't need to be playing regularly for his club, and he hasn't been lately. I think he'll be on the plane, but I actually think, assuming Aleix Shakati starts, this is a big if. Hear me out. I think Harry Souttar, he's coming back from his injury now. I think he should start for me, personally. Sheffield United are monitoring him closely. Obviously, he was playing there before He suffered his injury. That was December last year, I think was his last game. I think if he gets fit and firing, if he can go back to Sheffield United on loan, which it sounds like it's a very real possibility, Chris Wilder loves him, and if he can maintain his fitness, I think he probably should start in the middle of that defense for me personally. Let me know what you guys think on that. I think next to him, I would have Cam Burgess. That's a no-brainer. And then Hayden Matthews, this is a really interesting one. I think for me, he's probably on the plane. I know he struggled a little bit at Portsmouth recently. He kind of got thrown into the mix for a few of their most recent games. He made a great impact on arrival. Unfortunately, he hasn't quite been able to get back to that same level of fitness. But I just think those championship seasons are long. They are difficult and they are physical, and I think there will be injuries in that squad, in that Portsmouth team. I think he'll get game time throughout the year, and I think he has done enough already that Popovic is probably willing to stick his neck out a little bit for Hayden Matthews at this stage, would be my prediction. I think that could come at the expense of Kai Rolls, who I'm going to put in first reserves for now, and I think Jason Guerrier as well for me. Jack Iredale, I don't necessarily see making the squad. Probably the same with Kai Truins, just probably a bit too early on. And Geordie Boss, I would be gobsmacked if he didn't. I think it's been said, everybody's seen him play. He's been unbelievable. He's incredibly valuable going forward. His passing and dribbling especially, just absolutely top quality. And I think, but we are just so much better for having him in the side. Sammy Silvera. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say I think he's got a good chance of being on the plane for a few reasons. Primarily his versatility. Now, he kind of made a good enough impression at Borough to more or less convince Rob Edwards to keep him in the side as a squad rotation player. He's been primarily playing as a left wing back, but we know he can play on the right as well. He's so versatile and he's getting minutes, not super regular minutes, but he's a squad rotation player for one of the best teams in the championship right now. A new manager is going to come in and make an assessment on it. That could have an impact on him. But I think in terms of proving himself as a squad player at Middlesbrough, he's doing that. And again, the championship seasons are long. They are really long, and I think he'll get his minutes, and I think he'll do enough to get in the squad. Okay, let's talk about Callum Elder for a second. Firstly, just great to see him in the squad again. He's been playing really well for Derby. He struggled with fitness over the last few years. He's had a lot of injuries, but this season he's been consistent, he's been playing well, and I think what's really notable about Elder specifically is the way Derby set up is very similar to the way Australia are going to set up in the World Cup, in the sense that they absorb a lot of pressure. They are very rarely in possession, and wing-backs have a huge impact on the way they go forward, and Elder is a big part of that. However, I think if I was a betting man, I think Popper will probably take Beige for that experience. Although I do think this could be a toss of a coin. It really depends on Elder's fitness, what happens for the rest of the championship season. Things can change so quickly in the championship, and there's a lot of football to play between now and June. So I think this is a toss of a coin for me at the moment, but I could see Beige probably sneaking in there ahead of Elder. Maybe even both of them instead of Silvera. I'm going to keep it like that for now, but interested to hear what you guys think. I'll give an honourable mention here to Jacob Farrell as well. He's been injured and he'll probably need to go somewhere to get game time. I think he's probably one of those ones that would need a little bit of luck to get in the squad at this point. Okay, moving on to our midfield, and we have Jackson Irvine. Nailed on starter for me. I think it's brilliant that he's back in the fold after his ankle injury. He's been getting more minutes with St. Pauli since coming back as well, which is all promising. And for me, he adds so much composure to this side, and he pops up with goals as well. And I think that's one thing we have to look at with this side is where are the goals going to come from? I think that's a concern. And I think the fact that you saw players like Geordie Boss scoring in the last international window against the US. I think goals could come from anywhere. And Jackson Irvine is a goal-scoring midfielder for the Socceroos, and he's proven that. Connor Metcalf, I would expect to probably start at this point as well. I would say he's a very good chance. And Alex Robertson. Okay, I think there's a lot of question marks about Alex Robertson. He sort of had to fight his way back into Cardiff City side that he's playing in now. And to be fair, he's done that. I watched his cameo against Wrexham in the League Cup, and he looked fairly comfortable in helping them see out that game. I think at this point, I'm not convinced he'll be on the plane. Obviously, he's technically brilliant and a great option for Popper to have. Another one who probably just we need to see if he can stay fit. But I think for the time being, I'm not convinced that he'll be on the plane. Cam Devlin, on the other hand, I think will be. I think he'll be possibly pushing to start. And I think one thing I'll say about Cam Devlin, I know there was some people maybe had some reservations about bringing him back into the fold. We've seen how our midfielders get pressed in Popper's system, and we've struggled with that in the last few games. One thing that Devlin's really added to his game in the last few years is his passing and his ability to absorb pressure and be press resistant, basically. So I think at the very least, he'll be on the plane. I think a real shame if he wasn't. And if Hearts do win the league this year, first time in 40 years or 41 years since a team outside the old firm's done it, that will be one of the great Australian sporting stories. So assuming all of that goes to plan, and again, we know that a lot can happen in football, but I think if they do go on and do that and he misses out, then that would be outrageous. Paul Ocon Jr. is probably unlikely at this point, maybe outskirts. Max Ballard, I would say, would be if I was a betting man. If Robertson comes in, is he taking Ballard's spot? Interested to hear what you guys reckon about that. Ryan Teague hasn't been playing a lot of football. I know he's injured at the moment. I'm going to probably say the same with, probably Yazbek as well. Yazbek's probably first reserve. Keanu Bacchus could maybe sneak in there. Maybe I put Bacchus in first reserve, but I think Calic hasn't been playing a heap of football. Teague's been struggling for minutes. And I think Yazbek is just going to miss out purely on just us having better options. Aidan O'Neill, I'm actually thinking he's pretty much locked in, to be honest, at the moment. And then let's also quickly talk about Mas Luongo, who I think is such a shame because I think obviously he's had his ACL injury. He started really positively this season for Millwall. Just seems like he's not going to be fit, which is a real shame because I think he would have been a wonderful option to have. Riley McGree, for me, starts. I think we've missed him so much. Middlesbrough they're going to have a new gaffer come in, but Rob Edwards came out and spoke about how good he is and how valuable he is to the team. He started on the weekend for Middlesbrough. I think he has to be, maybe if he's not starting, again, this all comes down to fitness, he'll be on the plane for sure. Might even move Metcalf down. Eden Rustic has been in good form in the Netherlands. I think he'll be on the plane as well when he's fit and firing. He's so comfortable on the ball. His passing ability is unbelievable. When he's fully fit and firing, he's such an asset to the Socceroos. So I think at this stage, I'd be surprised if he's not in the squad as well. Let's also give a quick honourable mention to Anthony Caceres, who I think probably is just too far on the outskirts at this point in time for me personally. And we can mention Christian Volpato. I don't think we really need him. I'm not that bothered about him not being in the equation. Okay, Adrian Segecic. I absolutely love watching this guy play football. The problem is he hasn't played a heap of football. Obviously, he's injured at the moment, and there seems to be kind of a thing at Portsmouth, even before his injury, about them managing his game time. Obviously, we know he didn't go away with the Socceroos. It sounded like that was to manage his fitness. And I think it's not that surprising when you look at the numbers. So he only played, I know he made about 24 appearances for Sydney in the A-League last year, but if you look at total minutes played, it was the equivalent of about 15 whole matches. So to go from that to playing in the championship, which we know is so physically demanding, and he got thrown straight into that starting 11. He was playing 90 minutes on 90 minutes. It's taken its toll, and I think you look at the way some of these A-League players go, and I know it's been discussed recently, but to go from playing one of the shortest seasons in the world to then playing in the championship where they effectively play double the games when you factor in cup competitions, it's going to take time to adapt just to the workload more than anything. We saw Hayden Matthews get injured in his first few weeks at Portsmouth as well. So I think Segecic is on the plane for me. Again, fitness dependent, but what he offers going forward is just top class. And again, we're talking about technical ability and the ability to score goals. Segecic is the kind of player that will be able to do that, I think. Obviously, the same goes for Iran Kunda, who I think will start too. So there's 22 players in the squad at the moment. Let's select 4 from these remaining names. I think Moture will probably start. I think he's done enough. He's got 7 goal contributions in 13 games for Randers in Denmark. So he's been playing well. He's proven that he can be effective in this system. And I think he's done enough to start in our opening game of the World Cup. This is where it gets really tricky. So if we're selecting 3 names from these players, I think I'm going to go and say it. I think Mitch Duke is going to be on the plane. I think he's been one of the most overly criticised Socceroos players that we've produced in the last little while. But whether you like him or not, he is effective. And I think as well, let's talk specifically about what his strengths are, which is holding the ball up and his aerial ability. I don't know if we have another player that can do that the same way he can. So just in terms of having that profile, and his goal scoring record for the Socceroos speaks for itself. He scored in a World Cup. Not even Mark Viduka did that. I know he'll be 35 by the time the World Cup rolls around, but I could just see him sneaking onto the plane purely because of the profile. We've spoken about players in this group that are brilliant when it comes to set piece delivery. What's the point in having those players if we don't have players that can finish it? Because let's be realistic, we're going to be chasing games at points. I think Mitch Duke is the kind of player you bring on when you are chasing the game. Let's talk briefly about some of the more, I'd say, wildcard picks for this particular window. Denny Juric, who I think I'd be surprised if he starts. No, he's playing in Poland at the moment. He's been in a little bit more goal scoring form. I'd be surprised if he's in the squad, Al-Hassan Toure probably needs a bit of luck as well. I know some people have suggested, if an A-League, more attacking minded A-League player was going to get a call up, should it have been Alex Badalato? Maybe. Nick D'Agostino hasn't been playing a whole lot of football either. And then we get on to a few interesting dilemmas. Does Martin Boyle go to the World Cup? I know he's been consistent. I think if we've got 2 players to select left from this group, I think Botic is a good chance. I really do. I think he's earning his opportunity, which means I think that would push Boyle to kind of that first reserve spot. Milanovic seems unlikely. Stamatolopoulos has been in good form, but I think it probably seems slightly unlikely at this point. Zach Sapsford as well is probably in that first reserve category at the moment. And I think Arzani is as well, just purely because he's not been playing. And that leaves us with Craig Goodwin and Nishan Valupale. I think I'd probably be leaning towards Craig Goodwin. I think we know how good he can be when he's at his absolute best. He adds so much to the Socceroos going forward. Again, we've spoken about his ability on set pieces is so good too. I think it'll probably be Craig Goodwin that gets that last spot. But this is so up in the air. And again, this is a prediction. This is what I think Tony Popovic could end up doing based on how he's made his selections in the past, the sort of players he's brought in, the long list, the needs for his system. Again, I'm very open to feedback on this. So let me know what you guys think, if there's anything you'd change. Where have I gone wrong? Who's unlucky? I know there are a few other players that I haven't even brought to the table here. The likes of Brandon Borello, Cassini Yengi, Marco Tilio. We've got 51 or 52 names here, so that couldn't squeeze everybody in, but this could well, at least these sort of 11 here, I think they'll probably make up the core of the squad. And then I think pretty much every other spot in the squad is up for grabs. So I think it's really exciting time to watch the Socceroos. It's exciting that so many players are getting their opportunity to prove themselves to Tony Popovic. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a long list to choose from. He's giving himself the opportunity to see everybody up close and giving us the best opportunity to really perform well at this World Cup. I think he's had the second longest run up to a World Cup for a Socceroos manager after Pim Verbeek. So he's giving himself the best opportunity to bring the best squad possible based on his own judgment. Obviously, ultimately, what do we know? But I think it's an exciting time to be watching the squad, exciting time for these players. And I think this upcoming break will tell us a lot about which of those players on the long list have got a realistic chance of making the final 26.